Okay, we're up to chapter 10, verse 3. It states, the book of Bamidbar. Yeah. So that they said before you travel, you have to make 2 trumpets of silver, and that'll be called to gather in the people. Verse 3, V'takubahen, and you blast these trumpets, V'nuadu elecha kol ha'idal pesach moed, and everybody will come towards the entrance of the tent and gather to you. Rashi says, V'takubahen, when you sound the blast b'shteim, with both of them. So this is the trumpets is a sign to gather everybody together. So the first purpose of the trumpets is to gather everybody together. As it states, hello there, how you doing, Levi? What? Baruch Hashem. As it states, it's a sign for the gathering of the assembly. As it states, entire assembly shall gather to you to the entrance to the tent. Verse 4. If they make a blast with one of them, so if they make a blast with both of them, then it's a sign to gather. But if they make a blast with one of them, thank you, Seth, then then the princes, the heads of Israel, will assemble to you. So if there's 2 blasts, it means it's time to move. If it's 1 blast, Rashi says, that's a sign that you call the princes. As it states, they also gather at the entrance to the tent. We're in chapter 10, verse 4, Seth. Actually, we just did 4. And then you blast a trua, and then after you do a trua, the camps travel east. The camps that are resting east shall travel. Rashi says, Teruah is Siman Masa Machanot. The sign to travel is Tekiah, Trua, Tekiah. This is a good thing to keep in mind for Rosh Hashanah. When you do, what is the original source of the idea of Tekiah, Trua, Tekiah? It means it's time to move. Don't just stay in the same place your whole life. Time to travel, time to go in a direction. Can't just be in the same place and expect the same results. Even though it worked out last year, it doesn't mean it'll work out next year. You always have to be looking to improve. So maybe Rosh Hashanah is telling us time to move, time to get up and try something new. Yeah. That's what the Sifri teaches. What do you think about that, Elon? You always got to be willing. You always have to be willing to try something new. Always have to be willing to try something new. Utikatim trua shenis, and then when you do another trua, then the camps that are to the south move. Trua yitkeu masayim. They shall sound the trua for their journeys. No Rashi on that. Utikatim. Yeah, we did that. If you're just gathering everybody together, then you do a tekiah, but not a trua. So okay, let me read what Rashi says here. A little bit confusing. When you gather everybody together, because it says, they shall be yours for the summoning of the assembly and to cause the camps to journey. And we could, not just like the gathering, there's 2 Kohanim making a sound, and both of them have trumpets, as it says, V'takubahen. Also, when they travel, both trumpets blast together. I might think that just like when the camps journey, there's a tekiah, trua, tekiah, so too, when you gather everybody, it's a tekiah, trua, tekiah. That's not the case. Because then there'd be no distinction. And so therefore, what we have to do is that for gathering everybody, you do 2 long blasts. For the Nisiyim, you do 1 long blast. And neither one has a trua. But when it's time to travel, you do tekiah, trua, tekiah. But you have 2 trumpets. All of them have 2 trumpets, but it's just the type of blast is different. So the signal to travel is tekiah, trua, tekiah. Everybody's got to remember this. The problem is that it's so far away from Rosh Hashanah. If this was the week before Rosh Hashanah, this would be every rabbi's Rosh Hashanah drasha, because it's such a powerful idea. Okay, Pasuk 8. The sons of Aaron, the Kohanim, this is Elon and Jeff, we got 2 Kohanim here, have to sound the trumpets as an eternal decree for your generations. Rashi says, at these summonings of the assembly and the journeys. Okay, now we have, so that's another reason. We are going to get to another reason. We've seen, why do you blast the shofar so far? You blast the shofar when you travel, when you gather everybody together, or you gather the Nisiyim. Now we have another reason why we blast the shofar. When there's a battle in your camp, because there's distress. Then you have to blast the trumpets. Then you blast the trumpets and you'll be remembered before God and you'll be saved from your enemies. Actually, I've seen a lot of videos before the idea of soldiers going to battle, they blast the shofar. Have you seen that? You've seen that, yeah. I've seen a lot of videos like that, actually, that they're blasting the shofar. Yeah, so...
Rabbi Rosner taught last night that it says here, Behaalotecha, not utkatem, so you start with a truah and then a tekiah because you're broken, you're in a situation of stress, and then you do the tekiah because you want to give yourself the strength and the chizuk to do the.
That's what Rabbi Rosner said last night. Rabbi Rosner gave the eulogy, gave the hesped at my friend's son's Levaya, the one who was killed in Gaza and Rafah on Shabbos. So Rabbi Rosner gave the hesped because they live in his community in Beit Shemesh. And Rabbi Rosner said, the boy's name was Eliezer Moshe. Rabbi Rosner called him Elimo. And he said that he said this boy, Elimo, was the sweetest boy in the world and the nicest boy. And he said Hashem wanted him to sit right next to him because Elimo is going to help Hashem build the base of Mikdash. That was the way he spoke. It was very moving the way you could tell from his speech how much he loved this boy. Okay, so this is what Rabbi Yosef was saying. I understand it, quoting Rabbi Rosner, that normally you do the tekiah first, but here we're told Behaalotecha, that the trua is coming first because we're in such distress, and then we need the tekiah to support us. So that's another reason. So that's the 4th reason why we blow the shofar. And now we come to the 5th reason. Uviyom simchatchem uv'moadechem uv'rashei chodshechem utkatem v'chatzotrot avotechem v'al zivchei shalmechem v'yochem v'zikaron afnei elokechem ani Hashem elokechem. This is the 5th reason. Why do you blast the shofar? On the day of your rejoicing, on your festivals, on your Rosh Chodesh, you blast the trumpets over your korban olos, and this speaks of a communal offering, Rashi says, and on your peace offerings, and this will be a remembrance before Hashem your God. Ani Hashem Elokechem. I am Hashem your God. So there were many, I don't know if they still do this, but there were many kibbutzim, not necessarily even the religious ones, on Rosh Chodesh used to blast the trumpets, and it was based upon they were returning to the biblical verse, and here it says that on Rosh Chodesh you're supposed to blast the trumpets. I just want to do this, Rashi. Rashi says, I'm Hashem your God. Mikan Manu, and this is the source that you need Malchiot. On Rosh Hashanah Musaf, we have Malchiot, Zechronot, Shofar. So this is the source that Malchiot, which represents kings, goes along with remembrance into shofars. Because it says Utkatem, that's shofar. Zikaron, for remembrance, that's Zechronot. So this is the source for the idea that you should have Malkut, Zechronot, and Shofar, but really it should be on all your festivals and all your holidays, not just on Rosh Hashanah. But the in the Beis Hamikdash, I think they used to blast the shofar on Rosh Chodesh also, but nowadays we don't blast it. Yeah, I mean normative rabbinic Judaism doesn't. Yes, Jerry.
In the ninth Rashi, it says that the trumpets will be blown when you have burnt offerings, but burnt offerings were done daily. So that means that these trumpets were blown every morning, or well, whenever
Yeah.
the. Is that true?
Yeah, presumably by the Levites, they were blown every day. Right, when they were bringing their offerings, they were blown. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to journey. Now it's time to travel. So, verse 11, Vahi b'shana shenit, in the second year, b'chodesh hashini, in the second month, b'esrim b'chodesh, in the 20th day of the month, Nawel anan me'al mishkan ha'edut. The cloud went up above the Mishkan. So what is it? What happened then? She says, "B'shana hashini, b'chodesh hashini, nimtzeit ha'omer." Rashi says, we learn from here that there were shnei masar chodesh chasar asara yamim asu b'charav. That there were 12 months less 10 days at Chorev. Sharei b'rosh chodesh Sivan chanusham. So how long were they at Chorev? What's Chorev? Mount Sinai. So they were out Mount Sinai for 10 days less than a year. They camped at Mount Sinai for 10 days less than a year. Sharei b'rosh chodesh Sivan chanusham. They camped there for the first time on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And they didn't travel until the 20th day of the month of Iyar on the next year. So that will be 12 months minus 10 days, because they started Rosh Chodesh Sivan and they left the 20th day of the month of the next year. So they were a little bit less than 1 year. Look what Rashi says. Nothing. I mean, back to the verse. And then Vayisu b'nei Yisrael l'maaseihem, and the b'nei Yisrael traveled in the Bar Sinai from the Sinai wilderness. Vayishkon ha'anam b'mar Paran, and the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran. Rashi says, for the traveling of their divisions, mi rishon and mi achron. They traveled according to their journeys, who's first and who's last. B'midbar Paran, Rashi says, Kivrot ha'tava b'midbar Paran haya. This place where they're about to sin was in Midbar Paran. V'sham chanu mimasazeh. Then they camped. Okay, so how did they journey? Vayisa degel machanei b'nei Yehuda barishona l'tzivotam, and the camp of Judah journeyed first with tzivotam. V'al tzivao Nachshon ben Aminadav. So the head of that camp was Nachshon ben Aminadav. V'al tzivah matei b'nei Yisachar, and the head of Yisachar was Netanel ben Suar. V'al tzivah matei b'nei Zvulun was Eliyav ben Chilon. And then v'hurada Mishkan, the Mishkan was taken down. Mishkan was brought down. V'nasu b'nei Gershon b'nei Merari noser Mishkan. The Mishkan was brought down, and then after it was brought down, the b'nei Gershon and b'nei Merari traveled. Rashi tells us how it was brought down, because Rashi says, "Kevan shenosei degel Yehuda." Once the division of Judah would travel, then Aaron and his sons would come into the Mishkan, remove the parochet, cover up the ark with the parochet, and then they would travel. B'nai Gershon, B'nai Merari, Porkina Mishkan, they would dismantle it, V'toanino Tobagalot, and they would load it onto the wagons and move it. And the ark and the holy utensils that were the burden of Kahas, they would stand covered, and they would be placed on the poles until the division of the camp of Reuven would travel. And then afterwards, the Kahatites would travel. Okay. So that's the way they did. Hello, Guy, how are you doing? So, verse 18. We're in chapter 10, verse 18. What page is it, Akiva?
Chapter 10, verse 18. I was on the wrong page.
Oh,
780.
789, Guy. 789. Okay. And then Vinasa Dega Machane Reuven with Tzivosam, then the camp of Reuven would travel, and they had Elitzur ben Shtayur. And then the camp of Shimon, and they had Shlomi ben Tzuri Shaddai, and then the camp of Eliasaph, Beduel. Verse 21, Vinasu Akatim, Nosei Mikdash, and then the Kahatim who were carrying the temple would travel. Ve'kimu et Mishkan ad Boam, and they built the Mishkan. Let's see what Rashi says this means. So the Kahat family would carry the things. Ve'kimu es Mishkan, and they would be holding the Mishkan. Rashi says, B'nai Gershon and B'nai Merari would come first, and they would set up the Mishkan. So and then the cloud would come to rest, and then they would show that that's where they were supposed to build it, and then they would camp, and then afterwards the B'nai Kas would come with their two divisions, with B'nai Gershon, and while they were coming, the sons of Gershon and Merari would build the Mishkan. And when Kahats would arrive, they would find it fully built, and they'd bring the Aron Kodesh, the table, the menorah, and the Mizbeach into it, and that's what it means. So the other families would build it, and when they arrived, it'd be ready to go, and they would just put it in it. Okay. Verse 22, V'nasa Degel Machnei B'nei Ephraim with Tzivosam, and then the division of Ephraim would travel, V'al Tziva'o Elishama ben Amihud, with Elishama. And then the B'nai Menashe would travel with Gamliel ben Pidatzur, and then the B'nai Binyamin would travel with Avidam ben Gidoni, and then the Machaneh B'nai Dan, Rashi says here, the people from Dan would gather up all their camps, Ma'asef l'kol machanot. We'll see what that means. By the way, the Ethiopian Jews originally, now they say that they're the children of Solomon. They're descendants of Solomon. But originally, people were saying that they were from the tribe of Dan. The reason why they said from the tribe of Dan, because there was a person in maybe the 10th century. You have to. His name was Eldad Adonai. To look him up, Eldad Adonai, and he said he was from the tribe of Dan, and everybody was thinking he was the Mashiach, and he said he's from the tribe of Dan, and he was black, and he was traveling all over Europe, and he was saying, "I'm the Mashiach."
Oh, did he say he came from a different city that you could only get across on a river?
Well, this is Eldad Adonai.
Like rocks falling from the sky or something. You could only cross on Shabbos.
Let me see.
That
Eldad Adani. Let me tell you what it is. Oh, what century did I say?
10th.
He was 9th, 851 to 9. No, he died. He lived in the 900s. So that's 10th century.
Yeah.
So he probably was originally from Saudi Arabia. What?
Was he black or
they describe him as black. He professed to be a citizen of an independent Jewish state in East Africa. His name is Dan. Inhabited by people claiming descent from the lost tribes of Dan, Asher, Gad, and Naphtali. He visited Babylon, Kirawan. Where's Kirawan? I think it's Kirawan is in
Carthage, Tunisia.
Tunisia, right? Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula, where he spread fanciful accounts of the 10 lost tribes and the halachot which he claimed he had brought. Eldad's Hebrew narrative, Sefer Eldad, established his reputation as a philologist, whom leading medieval grammarians quoted as an authority. his halachot, which deal with the laws of Shlita, differ in many places from the Talmud and are introduced in the name of Joshua. Eldad's account soon spread, and anyway, so they thought he was, for a while, they thought he was the Mashiach. Anyway, I see the tribe of Dan, but the tribe of Dan is called the Ma'asef. What does Rashi said it means? Talmud Yerushalmi teaches us because the tribe of Dan was very numerous, and they would travel at the rear. Whoever will lose something, the tribe of Dan would return it to him. There's one opinion that says they would travel like a box, because it says, as they camped, so they journeyed. And there are those who say they would travel like a beam in a straight line, because they said Ma'asef would call Machanot. But regardless, their job was to come last and pick up all the stuff that people dropped.
Lost and found.
They found it.
Lost and found.
Yeah, that was their job. That was their job. Their job was to call that out. Say, listen, I found somebody's bathing suit. Yeah, I cut you off, Seth.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Previously in Bamidbar, when they talk about the numbers of the tribes and where they were all positioned,
Right.
Dan, Asher, and Naphtali were always traveling in the rear, also for defense purposes. I thought they were also the strongest. That's why we put them in the rear. They are still in the rear position, but was Reuven, Shimon, and Gad originally leading the direction? Weren't they first? If Dan, Asher, and Naphtali was behind, and aren't we switching it now, making Yehuda, Issachar, and Zebulun the front?
The Yehuda, the way Rashi described it in Bamidbar, Yehuda was the one in front traveling. He
Not
always
the
went.
way- And Ephraim and Manan, and Dan was still in the back?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's my recollection.
because the way they organize it here, Yehuda's in the east and
Right.
Dan is next to them, positioned when they are.
I
So
thought
how
you-
could that be?
I thought Yehuda was in the north.
East.
Yeah, so it was like a snail that unfolded
Right.
itself, or a
This
snake.
is
that
how we get. This is how Rashi describes it. Rabbi Yosef is going to explain it. It's basically, they travel. Rabbi Yosef, say it loudly so he can hear.
So basically, that Yehuda was in the east, but they were going mostly north and west. So he would go around the camp and lead the way, and that's why Rashi also described how the Mishkan was being taken down. So it was almost like either like a snake or a snail that basically did the loop and then continued in the direction they were walking.
Okay. And Jerry.
I'm going
Jerry,
to,
you had a question?
Yeah, I'm going to offer a far-fetched theory.
Uh-oh.
Since Dan was at the very rear, picking up lost objects, maybe that's the reason why archaeologists have never found a broken pot that the Jews left in their 40 years of travel.
Carry in, carry out.
Or Dan was in.
Yeah, he said because Don was in the rear. No, Don.
Okay,
No, the point is, one of the criticisms of the historicity of the Bible is that the archaeological evidence hasn't found anything of their encampment. So he says, yeah, but that's because the tribe of Dan picked up everything. All right, we'll stop with daven mincha now. It's an interesting point. Shkoyach. All right, let's daven mincha now.
Oh.